Hey traders, John Fortune here with this week's Weekly Forex Forecast for the 11th of March to the 15th of March 2019. As always, we're going to start off by looking at the US dollar index and oil before running through a number of markets, looking at the key levels of support and resistance in the process. And we're also going to be highlighting some of the targets that we're going to be looking for in the coming week and also for the weeks ahead. So let's jump over to the charts and see what the money is this week. As always, starting with the US dollar index. Now we start the week above near-term broken resistance at 96.61, so we are still trending to the upside in the near term. However, we did trade last week into key resistance, this dashed line here, medium-term resistance, the more major resistance at the 97.69, and we also have just above this the near-term resistance at the 97.87. Now usually we look at levels, we don't look at areas, but when you have two key areas of resistance is close to each other, you can consider this more of an area because we could very easily come through the major resistance and retest the near-term resistance before declining to the downside. But this is overall quite a major area of resistance in the US dollar index. So very simply put, as we go into next week, we are going to be looking for one more attempt to push this to the upside into this key area resistance, possibly testing the 97.87, and this is going to be an area where next week we're going to start to see if we can get bearish formations and patterns. And if we start to get the right kind of bearish formations and patterns in this area, we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of broken resistance, looking to turn support at the 96.61. So just to summarize, going into next week, we are approaching a key area of resistance in the dollar index. We are still trending to the upside, so we're looking for potentially one more push into this area. And this is an area where we are going to start to see if we get some reversal patterns in the US dollar index. So next market we're going to look at is crude oil. Now last week we did come down and trade into key area of broken resistance, turning support at a 54.74. Again, when you get levels this close to each other, you can consider this more of an area just because we're not going to be looking to trade between these levels because there's not enough room. But we may come back and get one more test this week, but we are now sitting right at an area where we can go into next week, starting to look for a potential correction and perhaps even one more retest of broken resistance turning support. And this is an area where we're going to be looking for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area resistance to the upside in the target set at the 59.29. As you can see, we are trending to the upside in oil. We're viewing this just as one big correction. And so bullish formations and patterns in this area is going to be the preference going into next week, looking for the next key area resistance to the upside, the 59.29. So next market we're going to look at is euro dollar. Now we start the week trending to the downside below a key area of near-term support at 1.1327, but similar to the dollar index, although inversely, we are trading to the downside in the near term, but we are sitting at a major area of support. We traded into this key area of support at the 1.12160 last week, and very simply put, going into this week, this is an area where we're going to start to see if we can get some bullish formations and patterns, which we do not have yet. We have this bear flag, which is a bearish pattern currently. But in this area, if we can start to get some reversal patterns, if we can start to see some bullish formations and patterns, this is going to be an area where we're going to start to look for potential long positions in euro dollar. And we're going to be looking back up to the key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance at the 1.1327. So next pair we're going to look at is pound dollar. Now last week we came back and retested broken resistance, turning support at the 1.31090, and this was an area we were looking for potential bullish formations and patterns, and you can see we bounced slightly from this area, but we did not have any patterns in this area. We had no bullish formations or patterns, and we ended up trading straight through it. So very simply put, going into this week, if we can get a pullback, and if we can get a pullback and a retest of broken support, turning resistance, once again, we've already seen it tagged over here before it's sold off. This, if we can get this kind of price action, is going to be a great place to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside in the target set at the 1.29590. Now, since we failed at this support area last week, this should be considered a bit of a range area. This is, generally speaking, an area we could start to look back up towards the 1.31090. But what should be noted with the pound dollar going into next week is that we do have on Tuesday the UK Parliament Brexit vote, and on Wednesday we have the annual budget being released in the UK as well. So just bear in mind, if you are trading the pound dollar next week, it should be considered higher risk, and we could see some volatility and some sharp moves coming into this market based on those pieces of data next week. So caution should be advised trading the pound dollar next week. So next pair we're going to look at is US dollar Japanese yen. Now we start the week sitting at broken resistance, turning support at the 110.960. Very simply put, going into next week, especially if we're going to get one more push into that resistance area in the dollar index, we're going to start to see in this area, which we do not have just yet, but if we start to get in this area bullish formations and patterns, this is going to be an area we're going to start to look to initiate longs next week. And we're going to be looking up towards the next key area resistance, the upside in the target set, the 112.23. Now you can see this is a black line here and this is a black line here. This denotes that this is an area we could start to go into a range, and especially if we start to get a rejection, we'll be keeping an eye on the dollar index. If we start to get a rejection from that resistance area in the dollar index, this becomes an area we can start to look for potential bearish formations and patterns, and we can look at initiating shorts back down to the broken resistance, turning support over here, turning support once again at the 110.960. Now just bear in mind the key word here is bearish formations and patterns, because these are areas we are looking for tradable setups, and we do not want to just be shorting the 112.23, because if this is going to continue to trend to the upside, you can just keep shorting resistance and getting stopped out. So we do really need to see one of two things. We want to see some bearish formations and patterns coming into this area of resistance at the 112.23, and we'd also at the same time like to see some rejection coming into that dollar index from that resistance area highlighted at the beginning of the video. So next market we're going to look at is Aussie dollar. Now we start the week trending to the downside below a key area of broken support, looking to turn resistance at the 0.7070. We are also, although we are trending to the downside in the near term, we are sitting at a more important area of support at 0.7021. So this puts us into a bit of a range situation. Now, because this is quite a tight range, instead of playing this range, what I prefer to see instead is a range breakout. So very simply put, a little bit of patience in the Aussie dollar. If we can get a break below a key area of broken support, turning resistance at the 0.7021, this is going to be an area we're going to start to look for bearish formations and patterns. We're going to be looking in this situation at initiating shorts down towards the next key area of support to the downside in the target set at the 0.6947, and if we can get a break through here, we're going to be looking down towards the next key area of support to the downside in target 2 at 0.6908. Now conversely, with this kind of a range breakout situation, if we can break above a key area of broken resistance here from the past and turning support at the 0.7070, this is an area we will start in the Aussie dollar to look for bullish formations and patterns, and we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set at the 0.7185. Now, depending on which way the Aussie dollar breaks out will likely depend on how the dollar index reacts at that key area of resistance next week. So again, we will be keeping an eye on the dollar index and just a little bit of patience on the Aussie dollar going into next week. So next pair we're going to look at is New Zealand dollar. Now last week we traded into the range bottom at the 0.67580, and we have had this bounce to the upside in the New Zealand dollar. So very simply put, going into next week, we're going to be looking for a pullback in the New Zealand dollar, potentially a retest of the range bottom at 0.67580. And if we can get this correction into this area, this once again is going to become a great place to start to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs back up to the range top from the past over here at the 0.6893. So next market we're going to look at is US dollar Swiss franc. Now we start the week above a key area of broken resistance from the past, looking to turn support at the 1.0020. We are also approaching a key area of resistance from the past, a major resistance area, so we are in the similar situation of being trending to the upside but coming into resistance. So very simply put, going into next week, we're going to be, as always, keeping an eye on the dollar index when trading the dollar pairs. But what we would like to see is if we can get a test of the key area of resistance at the 1.01280, This is going to be an area we're going to start to see if we can get some reversal patterns, and we're going to be looking for bearish formations and patterns in this area, and we're going to be looking at initiating shorts if we get those confirmed bearish patterns in that area back down to broken resistance turning support at the 1.0020. So the next pair we're going to look at is US dollar CAD. Now we start the week above a key area of broken resistance from the past, looking to turn support at 1.3334. If we can get a pullback, and this is trending to the upside as it stands, if we can get a pullback and preferably if we can get a retest of broken resistance turning support, this is going to be a great place. We're going to start to look for bullish formations and patterns, and we're going to be looking at initiating longs up towards the next key area of resistance to the upside in the target set, the 1.3370. And last but not least, we have gold. Now, last week we traded into the key area of support at the 128.410, and this was an area from last week we were going to be looking for bullish formations and patterns. And you can see we rallied from this area, and we start the week above the key area of support at the 1284.10. So this area has held going into this week. So very simply put, we are going to be looking for further advances in gold. If we can get a pullback, potentially if we can get a pullback and another retest of this key area of support at the 1284.10, this is going to give us the opportunity for anybody not involved from last week to start once again to look for bullish formations and patterns. And we're going to be looking at initiating longs back up towards the range top at the 1320.67. So that is it from me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please let me know by liking, sharing and subscribing. A big thank you to everybody who does that on a regular basis, and a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel so far. I want to wish you all a nice weekend, and I want to wish you all a profitable week next week. Just bear in mind that we do have the UK parliamentary Brexit vote and the annual budget coming out, so the pound pairs next week could get quite volatile. So apart from that, guys, I want to wish you well, and I hope you have a fantastic week. As I said, the only thing left to say is take care and don't forget to trade safely.